Good. I thought we could just start with everyone saying maybe where he's coming from. I think you know it, but what everyone expects from this hackathon, and also maybe how much you see yourself being able to invest in it, so everyone else knows what to expect from each other. Next to me is Miguel. You want to start?
Yeah, sure. So I think that except Dominic, I've met everybody in person last year in Washington, so that was good. So hi, Dominic. I'm Miguel. So I am. I didn't finish my PhD, but I'm still kind of doing it. At the same time, we have made a spin-off already from the institute with a company all around geological modeling and uncertainty and these things. So there is a pretty big commitment from our side to support GeoSci and the open source community in general, and also if everything works out properly from a commercial perspective, so that we can really put time not only in the scientific part, that I have the feeling that is where all our libraries excel, but also polishing everything. But yeah. So at the moment, we just created a company 2 or 3 months ago. So we are still at the very beginning, looking if we look for investors, clients, God knows how all these things works, but we really have this, and the professor is part of the company. So we are building this type of a hybrid around all these GeoSci and other libraries. Also Pinody. Pinody was written by my professor. That is for another type of modeling, but well, that's a bit where we are at the moment.
Miguel, can you just, if you can, just tell me what's what's the business model that the corporation is going after? I'm just curious because
yes, so that's still things that we are trying to figure out. So
how to monetize.
Yeah, so has been some companies already asking to integrate GeoSci in different workflows. We are also in a huge European project to build an interface, especially in augmented reality, so that way you can build models on the cloud directly and then display it either in your desktop, but also in the mine for exploration. So most likely it's going to be open core. So using the backends, always building it open source, while we are building specific apps and front ends for specific applications. That's a big idea today.
Okay.
Also, so one thing, for example, that we have already said a couple of times and has quite a lot of traction is an augmented reality sandbox. So I don't know if you have seen it in some museums that they have the Kinect on top and they display the geometry, basically the height. So what we are doing is just taking that height and passing it through GeoSci, and then we display the geological map. So this type of tools that they are using open source backends is what we see that has potential to generate revenue.
So software, not necessarily building the models for people, but more like training and software.
That's definitely the end goal. So if in the first years we have to just help people do more consulting. So if someone has started to make a model with GeoSci and they get stuck and they want to pay us to help them, that's also fine. And also specifically in probabilistic modeling. So we are, most of our research is in Bayesian statistics. So not just generate one model, but really an ensemble of models with specific likelihoods. And for that, you really need expertise. So I think that could be an expertise that companies could be interested to hire. Not so much to just help to create that single model, but to create the whole Bayesian network to analyze the uncertainty. We'll see. I mean, probably if you ask me in 1 year, we are in in a complete. So we are in conversations with Siemens, for example, that they saw GeoSci and they thought, this could be useful to model turbines because they have different layers of coating in metals, and then they look for impurities and cracks with tomography basically, And it's like, wow, that's like geology, but in miniature.
Yeah, scale down.
And it was them who came to us, so you never know. But
interesting.
And do you have, like, for this hack, particular interest? Let's say tomorrow morning, Filippo will start it off, and I assume there might be some people checking in and just asking, what could we do? Or do you have some ideas or some?
So I guess that's going to be a common thing in many of us. So the input of GenPy started at some point, and it's really just surface point and orientations. So it's already quite curated data. So I have the feeling that we really need something like subsurface is what I mentioned, or another library that somehow is the common denominator between all our libraries, so that we can put there, and then it's very clear that if you have your data in that format, you can use it across the plane. So I'm thinking of boreholes. So I have some students that they load their boreholes, and then obviously they use PyVista to visualize it in 3D, and they clean it and put it into GenPy. So that is a clear link. But I can imagine that if we just make it a standard, can be like, okay, the first step is you use this library to pre-process in the borehole data, and you just put it in here. And then if you have it in that format, it's going to be always a clear function that you can import it in the different libraries.
Yeah, that you could open it in Simpeg or in Fatiando or
yes,
you name it.
And I think that is something that we are really missing, because at the moment, so last year in the Transform, so Dieter and I, we sit down together and actually we made an example with Simpeg, and then we didn't finish it. It was and with the 3DMG and with Welly. Well, it was not Welly, it was a strip log. So we started to hack some notebooks of how could everything look, but in the end that is one-to-one communication. So every single time that we want to communicate one library with another is a specific code, and that is not scalable. So finding a really, so now most of our libraries are already mature enough that it seems that they're useful for everybody.
And you would also say the API is stable, so we could start to build something around it.
Yes.
Without fearing that it's going to change in.
So the thing is that for this European project that it has funding for 3 years, we promise something like that. So being able to just import data in open source and then visualize in augmented reality in this case. So I will have hours in the next years to really put work on that. So it's not like we just make a hack and it's going to die there. So I think that a library to managing a bit this type of geological data is going to happen. Now, if it's coming from one of these parties individually, it's going to be just my work. But I think that if we are able to agree across the board how to do it, it's going to be way more powerful, because then we can do the things right since the beginning. Yep.
I really agree with that. I think when what makes scientific Python so powerful is that you can go from so you can load your data, you can plot it, you can plug it into a machine learning model, and then you can save it all with the same underlying data format.
Yep.
So NumPy permeates everything from Xarray to pandas to matplotlib to scikit-learn to scikit-image. So you can you don't have to you don't need a conversion layer. NumPy is the conversion layer. So I would say that avoiding making custom classes for data as much as possible would be ideal, because that's where you run into these problems where now we certainly need to be converting from one thing to the other, and things might not be entirely compatible. So maybe adopting the broadest technology possible instead of building something specific for all of our projects. Then if someone else comes in with a different project, they're going to need to plug into that bridge somehow. Or if it's we couldn't do something that hasn't been planned if that's the case. But if we're all talking in these common formats of NumPy, Pandas, Xarray, then people could do applications that we can't even imagine at this point, I guess.
Yes, no, I agree completely. So for example, one thing that I've been doing in the last couple of months is just porting GenPy from the old VTK that we wrote to PyVista. And obviously, it was super easy for me to just take the data structure of GenPy and put it into PyVista. But still, it's a few lines of code. And if you start adding a few lines of, because we are using NumPy, so in that I agree completely. So that makes things super easy. So I think that is not such a big work. It's more about agreeing and a bit standardization, what we really need to do.
Cool. Shall we maybe continue with the quick intro? And because I started with Miguel, we go to Alex to stick with GenPy for the beginning. What do you do and what do you expect from this weekend, let's say?
So I basically joined because I was involved last time at Transform in the subsurface prototype we thought of, but I guess we were way too ambitious, and then nobody had time to continue with it. So I mean, my research and my work is working basically with GenPy and data exported from basically Petrel and software like that, because I'm analyzing a lot of seismic interpretations. And it's always been a pain for me to just, I mean, you can export all that data from Petrel easily, but then you have so many weird data formats and grids and fault sticks and welds you have to all load in, and so I had to write a lot of custom import scripts for esoteric data formats, and I thought this must be easier, or someone should have already done that at some point, and it's probably lost in their GitHub account somewhere, as it is for my code now. Nobody will ever find that, probably.
Don't underestimate Google.
Sure, but so what I wanted to do with this subsurface module, which is just a name we came up with randomly, I basically put all the GeoIO in there that doesn't fit into others. Like, I mean, SegWIO already exists for SegWI data, so we don't need to touch that, right? But to have everything collected and a place where people easily can like make a pull request with this import function, and then it all, like, everyone who imports like a fault stick will end up with, I don't know, the same data structure, a NumPy array or a pandas data frame for their fault sticks in the end. So they all need to point to the same end result to be useful, I guess. Well, I'm still hoping for that, even though I only have 1 year left in my PhD, so I don't know how much time I'll really have to keep working on that. But yeah.
A lifetime.
Depends where I end up afterwards. Yeah.
Cool, thanks. Leo, you want to continue?
Yeah, so I'm Leo. Most of you, I guess, know me already. I'm at the University of Liverpool. And to Alex's point, you'll never have more time than you do now. Time only disappears faster and faster. Right, so I started here this year. I work on the Facendo Terra project since 2010, I guess. Right, so what I'm really hoping here is to like have this better bridge between all the different projects. One nice thing that came out of a lot of discussion with Lindsay and the rest of the SimPag group was just having more clearly defined scopes for all the projects, which is nice. So I think Facendo is kind of positioned more on the data processing and at least analytical forward models and more esoteric inversions, which would be hard to do with a framework like SimPag or too many acronyms, PyGimli, right, where you have a unified framework for solving PDEs, and that allows you to do very efficient, very fancy joint inversions. But it's not easy if you want to invert for the geometry of an interface, for example. So I'm kind of leaning more towards that kind of problem anyway. Yeah, so but mostly what I would hope to obtain here is, as I said in the chat, was if we can have a shared environment that we know works with all the packages, because I've not tried to install the Fatiando packages, GemPy, Simpeg, Discretize, PyVista, and PyMod. I have not tried installing all of that in a single Conda environment. And it feels like I mean, it might just work out of the box and yay, we're done in 5 minutes, but there might be some crazy conflicts in there that we're not aware of. So if we can build that or just make sure it works and maybe have a curated meta package like the Pangeo stack, where they have a meta package that curates versions of the libraries that they know work well together. So something like that might be useful, so that you could install like the geophysics or the geoscience stack, and then you would get everything.
Or at
so
least
that, yeah,
EM potential stack, or yeah.
Something like that.
But
yeah.
I think many of the packages recently were, well, like Simpeg, Discretize, EMG3D, EM PyMod moved to Conda Forge within the last year or two. So it actually might be easy. I'm not sure. We will find out.
But still, like maybe like we require some version of NumPy in one and another version in another, and then suddenly it's all broken.
And it's a good question. Is GemPy on Conda Forge?
No. So we are using pip. But in GemPy, we try to, I think that for all the libraries, well, except VTK was until recently that it was not compatible with the last Python. But in general, in GemPy, we are always with the latest versions of all the packages, which I don't know if it's good or bad, but but I'm really trying to, in the moment that Pandas breaks my code, I try to make the hotfix as soon as possible to just try to keep it.
Cool. Thanks, Leo. Bain, you want to continue?
Yeah. So I think all of you know me for working on PyVista. And yeah, for the recording, I played a role in developing PyVista, which is all about 3D visualization in Python. Now I'm at Kitware, and we're exploring some really exciting new sort of routes and avenues in the open source world, and really exploring where we can make some impact in the geosciences. So I guess I'm particularly interested in this hackathon just because I've been advocating or thinking that there is a major need that's long overdue to enable scientists to be able to work across all of the software that everyone in this meeting is bringing to the table today, to be able to have a reproducible workflow they can publish with their research, and make research reproducible, and just make their lives a lot easier, so they don't have 20 different notebooks working across these software and can just do it in one notebook or something like that. And so that's sort of my goal, is how can we figure out to just glue these pieces together. And I've been sort of advocating for PyVista to maybe be a route there, and I'm very biased towards that, but I think I'm moving towards seeing the value in creating something sort of on the lines of Xarray and more based towards that sort of route, and super general and not tied to necessarily the 3D data structures explicitly like PyVista is, and then just create a close coupling between that and PyVista for the 3D bits, because I think you can add a lot of value there when we couple things like 3D visualization to these data structures, because it sort of enables you to do a lot of exploratory analysis and gain insight in your research at all stages of the workflow. And that's what I'm most interested in, is how can we, at the data ingestion step of your workflow, you have all of this raw spatial data. We need to visualize that still. It's still spatial data. And then when you do your pre-processing, you might, maybe that's when you add the spatial reference or other things. And so you need visualization there to gain insight to what you're doing and what the algorithms and the black boxes are spitting back at you. And just at every stage in that workflow, you want to be able to integrate your geological model from GemPy with your inversion results from Simpeg or PyGimli. And so that's what I'm interested in here today. And just figuring out how we can do this in a way that is highly extensible, not only for the tools we make in this group, but also the broader sort of ecosystem across scientific Python, and sort of well-positioned geoscientists to move towards all of the new and emerging machine learning and data science technologies that are coming out, because that's sort of where we need to be heading. And I want to make sure, or I'm really excited to pursue sort of figuring out how to well position geoscientists to leverage those technologies, and having some sort of underlying library like what we're talking about would really enable that, because we'd have a sort of a way to build out a clear interface on, you know, running different machine learning algorithms on different types of spatial data or things like that. So that's my quick and dirty what I'm excited about here.
Cool, thanks, Wayne. Justin, I think just recently we removed the necessity of matplotlib from discretize, because I found that it's quite nice if you do your computations on a server that you have a minimal install and don't need to install all the library, the plotting stuff. So in that sense would kind of exclude PyVista from being the core and more like an X-array thing, so that you only need the plotting stuff locally and not on the server. But yeah.
Yes. So on that note, I'm trying to make a container for GenPy, and I'm having exactly the same problem at the moment. That visualization there is not necessary. Yes, out of curiosity. So are you still doing the PhD, Payne?
No, so I finished a master's at School of Mines and headed straight to kitware because I was.
Okay, so you didn't start the PhD, because I knew you wanted to do it, but okay, I see. Cool.
That's a crazy thing for me all the time, that PyVista is a master thesis project. So
yeah, that explains why you are so active coding that.
Yeah. Where were you when I was doing my master's and had to use my Avi?
Oh, I feel your pain.
Lindsay Dawn, you want to continue? One of you.
Oh, sure. I'm Lindsay. I'm currently a postdoc at UC Berkeley. Was previously did my PhD at UBC and will soon be heading back to UBC. And so I've been involved in I'm really excited about it. So heavily involved in the SimPeg project. So been working on SimPeg since, I guess, 2013 or 2012, somewhere in there. So quite a few years. To reiterate, I think a lot of the points that folks are saying here, definitely very interested in seeing what we can do for an interoperable layer, both, I guess, between all of these packages, but then also, you know, thinking towards machine learning, and also perhaps interfacing well with sort of the Pangeo infrastructure and being able to actually perhaps easily strap on to some of the developments that they're making as well. So in that sense, thinking about something like X-array, I think is a great potential avenue. I guess a couple other things just on my mind that I think would be interesting to explore is both, I guess, interoperability between all of these packages, but then also thinking about what are some of the current sort of industry standard geologic modeling, and can we interface to those? Because I think that could actually drive further adoption of open source software, is if we can immediately interact with what folks are using every day, and not have that be a big hurdle. I think that could be a big step forward. And then one other package, and I sent this on Slack, that I think is worth looking to for ideas. And I was involved in some of the API design and sort of thinking about the database structure for this, is the OMF project. So it's open mining format. And so this was primarily championed by Franklin and Rowan, but I had a little bit of a pulse on that project, at least when it was initially created. And their goal was to create a common geologic format. At the end of the day, everything's serialized to JSON. I think they can serialize to other stuff too, but that's a nice, easy plain text format to serialize to. And so we thought about sort of block models, boreholes, lines, surfaces, those sorts of things. So just something to look to for ideas and see if, because there was a lot of thought that went into that. So there might be some pieces that we can leverage and sort of build off of. So I guess in terms of the hackathon, in the next couple of days, I unfortunately probably can't commit a whole bunch of time because I actually have to finish my tutorial, which is on Tuesday. But I definitely want to be involved and will be active on Slack, and I'm happy to sort of think through stuff with folks. And longer term, I think that this is an absolutely worthwhile effort, and so you can count me in for the long haul on this.
I have a couple of questions. So the OpenMine format is also a data structure in memory, or is more for long-term preservation? It's a file.
It's more thinking about how to serialize things. I believe that they did, like, there is some structure around holding it in memory, but I believe that the main purpose of it was basically like the I/O.
Because one thing that everybody has mentioned, but not making it clear, I really think that if we do this type of library, a huge part is the parsers, like being able to read all the commercial softwares, as you are saying, Lindsay, but also being able to export to any format that you want. And in this case, the open mining format makes a lot of sense. But that is for long-term storage. And the other question is, who are the people of Pangeo, and what is the goal?
Oh yeah, good point. So Pangeo is a project that's been started primarily by folks who are in climate and oceanography. So two names that you'll see are Ryan Abernathy and Joe Hammond were sort of two of the most vocal leads in that project. Now it's grown to be much larger than just the two of them. But basically what that project pitched is investing in open source tools in the Python ecosystem that serve geoscientists. So they really are the ones who deserve a lot of credit for Xarray. So Xarray and Dask. So even though Dask wasn't strictly from the Pangeo ecosystem, a lot of the recent developments and improvements have really been driven by that community. And so what they've been doing is then investing in open source software, but then deploying Jupyter hubs with a stack of tools, including Xarray, Dask, and then other common geoscience packages on the cloud next to big data sets. So there's data sets like CMIP6, which are on the order of, I think, 30 to 60 terabytes or something like that. So if you can't move those data, but if you can deploy a Jupyter hub next to them, then you can actually think about interactively computing on huge data sets, which is pretty cool. So that's the high level overview of that community.
Thanks. That's really interesting. I was also wondering, because yesterday I was reading in the Xarray documentation a bit to prepare for today. And they don't want to say geoscience too often, but sometimes they drop the word here and there.
Yeah, most of the core developers have some connection to geoscience. So
well, it came sort of from NetCDF, no? NetCDF, Xarray, Pangeo, the whole shebang. Yeah.
All right.
Dom.
Thanks.
Yeah, hi guys. So I did my PhD in the same group as Lindsay. It was definitely on geophysical inversions, and then helped out with the SIMPEG library, right? But now I'm full-time in the private sector for Mira Geoscience. I don't know if you guys heard who they are, but basically they were consultants and resellers of GoCAD for probably over a decade. And now they're kind of trying to transition towards their free viewer called the GeoScience Analyst, which relies on a H5, a structured H5 file format that is open. So what I've been doing for the past 6 months roughly is to write a Python API to be able to read and write to the GeoH5 file format. So obviously I'm kind of married to that database structure. It can store surfaces, block meshes, octree, drill holes, all that stuff. And so yeah, so I published a package recently to do that. And now that we have that, my next task is to start bringing open source technology like GenPy to our industry sponsors, because this is all sponsored by mining hard rock miners. And so what I would like to get out of this is, well, it's pretty simple. I would like to just be able to have a proof of concept that I can create a very simple geological model with GenPy to be able to digest it and then send it back to the GeoH5 database so that we can use the viewer, so that our clients and our sponsors can view it in 3D and manipulate it. So I'm not too married to the fact for it to end up in GeoH5, but it will have to end up in GeoH5 at the end of the day, just because that's that's what I'm paid for. But that being said, yeah, I think we're all going for the same thing, right? We're all trying to get one database, one type of data structure that we can all talk to and operate on, and then yeah, that's my goal. I don't know what else to say.
Great.
So
Thanks.
1 year and a half, I talked to your boss in Nancy in the ring
Yeah.
meeting.
He
talk
asked
about
me
you.
to talk to you.
Yeah.
There we go.
But he mentioned that he was going to employ someone from the Simpec group to start doing that.
Yeah, that was me. Yeah, and so now he knows that that this transform thing is happening. So I get free range time to be able to push that, because GoCAD is nice. It's like it has a lot of firepower to do very complicated things. But as Lindsay said, we're leaving so many people in the dust because it's way too complicated to do the modeling with hard softwares. And if we go to open source, and there's still like a pretty steep learning curve. So my role is to basically just to smooth out that transition and just give like simple apps that people can use GeoSci to be able to do what they want. And then I'm gonna hook up Simpec with little simple tools with Simpec so that people can just have 1 or 2 buttons that do exactly what they want, and people can capture as many people as possible. So that's kind of my role.
Yeah, actually, 2 months ago, just before the pandemic, we were in Australia, and I was with Guillaume, and we wrote a writer from GeoSci to GoCAD, and the other way around, I think. And it's a bit what Alex said. I have a snippet code here or there that I don't know where to put. So we really need to make a library that is where it makes sense to put this type of code, because I think it's pretty easy to just. It's a lot of work to communicate all the libraries and all the commercial softwares to back and forth, but you have to do a small piece of code for each thing. But I have the feeling that
repeated, and it shouldn't have to be repeated, right?
Yeah, it has to be stored somewhere that everybody looks at, and then it's documented.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
That's the feeling I have, that if you just are able to scan all the computers of everybody, we will have already all the work done.
Yeah. So I started a small repo. It's under obviously the Mio Geoscience, but it's on Git, right? It's going to be an open repo, and then that's going to be the goal basically, to just let people submit their own little apps that can do something. And then, but I'm sure it could exist somewhere else too. And I'm not married to this repo, but as you said, it needs to happen.
Maybe
it needs to happen somewhere. Yeah.
Cool. Well,
actually, correct one. Sorry, I just wanted to correct one statement. I think actually OMF is actually more so for the in-memory representation. It was meant to be an integration layer. I was just looking at the docs again, and the API, yeah, I think is something worth considering there. So just to put on the radar.
Yeah,
I'll post the while we're posting stuff. So this is the API also.
Or maybe put it straight into this brainstorming link if you have it, this HackMD.
Oh yeah, good call.
Yeah, thanks, Leo. I think it's thanks to you and your Fatiando meeting that I got to know about this HackMD. I like it.
Yeah, it's really good actually. The only thing I miss is it showing the name of the person typing.
Yeah.
Like Google Docs does, but yeah, it's pretty good, and it doesn't really need a whole lot of bandwidth, which is good because my internet sucks.
Cool. I quick finish off on Dieter. I think by now I know everyone. I'm probably from the smallest community because it's me. That's why I'm probably also interested in the interaction between the different communities like Simpeg and GeoSci and PyVista and Fatiando, which is I think the only project I've never really. I'm always observing it, but I've never actually done anything with it. So maybe this hack is the time. Yes, I did this interaction from GeoSci through discretized to EMG3D, and I think discretized there worked very well. And then we also went, the PyVista, and I think it was even with Panel last year. So we had this in-browser 3D movement, which was pretty cool. But Bain said there's something native to PyVista coming soon, so that's even easier. Because I think at the moment Panel is not working anymore, right, with PyVista? All that notebook doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, I would wish you good luck if you tried to get it working again.
Yeah, no, I don't think
but,
that's the right thing.
Yeah, Panel's changed some things, and they've made a lot of work. It's a lot better than what was initially there. It's worth checking out, but I don't know. It's there's a lot of people doing the same work in different projects and different ecosystems, and it's really a shame right now. And I'm actually kind of working to bring it all together a bit.
Cool.
And so I think in time we'll have something a bit more mainstream, whereas right now everything's kind of just these alpha projects being developed, and it's
yeah, cool. So my intent of the hack was originally more to finish what we started last year, to have this interaction GeoSci, Simpeg, and maybe Fatiando, to have this, let's model something realistic in GeoSci and then model gravity data, model DC data, MT data, whatever. And even more so as GeoSci put out many more fascinating models now in the new gallery, which are really cool.
They were always there, but they were notebooks.
Yeah, now it's very easy visible. So so that was my idea, and then I saw that you have much higher goals, loftier goals, with the whole subsurface thing. And I think both things fit into this hack, particularly because I expect that there will come people that have probably no experience with either of the tools, and part of their hack experience is to learn those tools and to combine them. So I think we should accommodate those, and that would be cool if you, Leo, and Lindsay, you say you don't have too much time, but if you're around on Slack and if folks have questions about how do I X with Y and things, that would be really helpful. And I guess for the subsurface idea, it will be more discussions we have to do, and it will also be more a start than something we expect to be finished Sunday a week, I guess. Or how do you see that?
So for me, the biggest question is of the others, how much they want to get involved, because that project, or I mean, if you convince me that makes sense to spend time in a similar project, I will do it. But I'm going to put hours sooner or later on that. So if Bain and Dominic want to start doing it this weekend, so we can brainstorm together, that would be great. If you want to spend time in other matters, then we can focus just in something simpler, just communicate different libraries so everybody can participate, and eventually we will, Alex and I, do it. So it's a bit up to you if you think that is a good moment to try.
Unfortunately, I kind of would like to be able to do this hackathon after I do the training, the GeoSci training, because right now I have the feeling I'm just going to be catching up on like how to do things, where I could just get that information on Thursday. Is that when it's happening?
Tuesday, I think. Also.
Tuesday, yeah.
What about this is a suggestion? If the first weekend we focus on just tying the codes together, and that'll be a chance for whoever's engaged to just play around and sort of wire things up and sort of hack around, get a bit familiar. And then if the next weekend, even if it's just short, we schedule a 1-hour call to start thinking about like an API design together. Because then hopefully by then we'll at least have seen each of the packages presented and have at least a bit of a flavor.
I like the idea, because I have the feeling that we can try to do it in two ways. One more data-driven approach, like, okay, which is the data that we need to represent and store and visualize and these things. And another a bit more focus on the libraries that exist. So which are the libraries that we want to connect, and which data they need those. And then we start there. So leaving it for next weekend could be a good opportunity, because we can see during the week the libraries that they are there, and then we can say, okay, so these libraries, they need this data, so we need to do this these specific things to communicate those.
Yeah, I think having a little bit of a running code already on my end would be much more productive to talk to you guys. So I would vote for that. Let's aim for next weekend.
It might be crucial that everybody knows at least 2 or 3 different tools to easier discuss how the underlying data should look like, because if you only know your own tool, it's kind of hard to decide what's a good approach to combine them.
Yep. And that's a good opportunity then. So if we're building first a use case, that would be where we're going to spot all the places where there's friction and might need to be smoothed over a little bit.
Yeah, that's true. I was also thinking that we could really try to just think of some area with borehole data, some seismic, from there trying to create the structural model in all these steps, already visualizing it with PyVista, and eventually just doing the forward physics or whatever. But that's it. And being able to store all those data sets back into whatever data structure we design.
Yeah, I've done some of like preliminary demos of this kind of work before, working unfortunately outside of most of this software, a bit with SimPeg and Discretize, but also with other like geostatistical libraries, and using PyVista as that glue. And so I might have some cool data from the Forge geothermal site. I think, Dom, you're familiar with that, where they have a whole just plethora of data. It's aerial imagery, there's DEMs, there's actual subsurface models that were created from like geostatistical creating of sparse data. And there are tons of well logs that I could probably dig up off of the GDR, Geothermal Data Repository website. It's like a public website. And so, you know, I think there's seismic there too. Would have to look. And so that might be a really good point, is to find a sort of case study where we have a plethora of data of all types of data types. And then sort of the developers of all these libraries can say, hey, what can GenPy actually do modeling wise? What can SimPeg do inversion wise? What can Fatiando do for the other things that Fatiando does? All the pre-processing, right?
Sorry to interrupt. My internet died while you were speaking. Would you mind just repeating the name of the site that you were thinking?
Forge.
It's the Forge, FORGE geothermal site. It's like this well-known U.S. Department of Energy project site for geothermal research. And the
GitHub repos, right, with some results.
I do. I would need to aggregate those and update them before they're probably anything you guys want to look at. And so I could try to do that tomorrow morning, and then pull that together, and also aggregate all those links in the GDR to where this data is stored.
That's a great idea, Ben. Yeah, great idea, because if we have one data set that we can publish to at the end, then that puts all up. That, you know, we don't have to worry about permission and whatnot, and we can just hammer it out. And you already work on it, so you know what's in it, so that's great.
Yeah,
I say.
I mean, if anyone else can think of cool sites like that, that would be awesome. But I'm just thinking Forge.
Yeah, Forge sounds perfect, actually. I was just looking at their data sets a couple of days ago. And yeah, you're right. They have everything that we would need. Because I think finding a place that has, everything is going to be tough. Yeah.
Everything.
And it's all open. Yes. Yeah. So I posted a link on the HackMD. Right. So I found this on the geothermal data repository. So then there's a tab there for the Utah Forge, and it has links to all the data sets. So they have the 3D geologic models, they have microseismic, they have gravity magnetic surveys, they have everything. Yes, it's really cool.
Where in the HackMD did you post that?
Right at the bottom, because I couldn't find another place to put it.
It's in
Fair
the
enough.
hack meeting one, not in the brainstorming one.
Excellent.
Oh, yes, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Maybe we'll move it afterwards. But yeah, that's cool.
Oh, sorry, was that the wrong? Yeah, I think that was the wrong place. Well,
Doesn't matter.
Document.
Yeah, if we could just have a folder, of, like, I don't know, somewhere on Dropbox or whatever you decide, with just a bunch of files, all the files, and then we try to digest it. Make a model.
So for the first prototype, we don't need to use 10,000 boreholes.
No.
We just need
Yeah.
to have something simplified that we
Yeah.
can play and that runs fast.
And do we
No.
want like a shared GitHub repository just for like dumping notebooks, or how do we want to do that?
That is exactly one of the questions I have. And I don't know, I've never actually been to a hackathon. I've been to Transform last year, but that was sort of more a gathering than a hackathon. So from more seasoned hackathon attendees, how would you do that?
I mean, it's a bit up to the participants. So in one hackathon that we just made a branch in GenPy. So we could do a branch in subsurface if we are going to code on that, or other people just create its own repository. So that's.
Or we create a joint repository. I mean, that's not that much of a problem, I guess. Problem with subsurface thing is that it's a part of the software underground thing, and then access rights and write rights is a bit of difficulty.
That should be fine. I think I have admin rights on that organization, so if anyone needs upgrading, I might be able to do it. I think. Let me see. I don't remember anymore.
I think I do too.
Yeah, but it shouldn't be too hard. I think when Matt created this, I think he was handing out admin privileges very freely.
I was very surprised to get it.
He's generally a generous person, yes.
Yeah. So Bane is set as an owner. Jesper also is an owner. So and I'm also set as an owner. Yeah. So that's permission issues there shouldn't be a problem. We can. Oh, Lindsay's an owner as well.
Oh, okay.
Now I feel left out. I don't want to be an owner.
Yeah, so we can upgrade people if that's required. I think everyone here is pretty trustworthy around GitHub.
So we could branch out of subsurface, for instance, and try to.
Do we want to do that there, or do we want to have it as a separate repo? Because my only motivation for maybe thinking about it as a separate repo is this is actually, I mean, this could be something that we turn into like a joint publication, or like turn into a cool sort of standalone repo that has a demo of like stitching these things together, whereas the subsurface might be better just to sort of really focus in on the API and the package that'll be created.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree that it's a bit two different things. If we just make one-to-one communication between libraries, doesn't necessarily be doesn't need to be in subsurface.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm open.
Plus, if we're making a bunch of Jupyter notebooks, it's probably good to not or to have those saved somewhere. Like after all this is over, without worrying about those notebooks being sort of hacky in their nature, clogging up space in a what's supposed to be a actual package library or something like Subsurface.
And making the .git directory of Subsurface heavy.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So we just create one for the hackathon, and then we'll see what we do afterwards with it. If we move some of the stuff to Subsurface or wherever.
I will check with Filippo if there is a general consensus where different projects should have.
So Dieter, I made you an owner as well on Swung. So if anyone else wants elevated privileges, let me know.
Cool.
So Miguel, are you on the?
I don't know if I am actually.
I can't find you. Oh wait, yeah, I'm searching wrong. Let's see. Nope, there are no Miguels.
So nobody wants to invite me, I guess.
I don't think I can.
What's your GitHub handle again?
Legwork, so written like this.
Right. There you go. Okay, invited. And sure, you can be an owner.
That was easy.
All right.
So let me see. Yes, I have here this other point. How shall we handle the time zone difficulty? That was actually mainly the reason why I wanted to call you guys. Because tomorrow when you get up, many here will probably stop working on the hackathon. Shall we have like an open meeting where anyone who wants to join tomorrow at like similar time again, or what do you think?
So the thing is that the welcome event is in European time, so it's really in the middle of the night.
There are three every day that Filippo does. So the first one is too early for the Americas, and the last one is quite late for Europeans. So
okay,
it's just to cover with all of them. But yeah, it kind of officially starts when Lindsay and Bain and Tom will be sleeping soundly, I hope. So that's why I thought I want to check with you guys what you expect and what I should tell all the other members that might join, where they should hack on, what might be the interest for you. But so what I could see is like any case study, anything that shows A going to B would help to at some point define what is the common denominator, for a data.
I think that for the general hackathon, that should be the
because
goal.
It will also show the difficulties they encounter, right? So we will find out.
Exactly, and if we start, I have to decide still.
Oh. Yeah.
Sorry.
Right. That for a hackathon, I think that is the easiest, because random people that they don't know what's the whole story about, they cannot contribute in something very deep. If across the hackathon we start to have to work in a subsurface and something comes out of it, that we can really start thinking of individual tasks, maybe we can start offering to everybody. But I think that in general should be just look to the GeoStack, choose what you want, just mix it. I mean, like examples that you have, Bain in PyVista, with a couple of libraries, that should go.
It might help if you make a list of if you have a list of the projects with like people who are going to be present at the hackathon.
Yep.
Just so that whoever joins, that they can quickly browse and see who's there that they can bother.
Yeah. List of kind of communities involved, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, like browse all of these, see if any of them is something you want to give a shot, and then we'll be around to
answer questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I will send you tomorrow an invite, and if you can make it, then it's good. If not somewhere in the evening, Europe, lunchtime, early, or a bit before in the Americas, something like this. Just to catch up. But so then it might be good if you have the same thing again in a week, so we can have kind of a recap from the first weekend, what came out of it, what was produced, and then we can have maybe a bit more targeted focus for the other Saturday to maybe start a plan that will last longer than the hackathon itself.
Yep, sounds good. I'm also super curious. I really want to see how tomorrow and after tomorrow goes, because with all this, so there are a lot of people who wants to participate, but because there is so little structure, you are at home, it's a weekend, I really don't know who is going to be
how committed. Yeah.
And if you do a hackathon just 2 hours, 2 days, you are not doing anything. So when we meet for a hackathon, we really spend every day 8 to 10 hours. And for that, you really need to be there. Otherwise, once you get tired, you just leave. So I'm really curious to see how this thing goes.
Yeah. Well,
and especially because we're split over so many time zones, it also makes everything so much more harder.
Because one thing is, are we planning to have Zoom running on the background while we are hacking to give a bit feeling? I guess that also depends how many people are we.
Well, there are at least 2 or 3 Zooms continuously going, right? It's a Zoom, it's the Hackathon Cafe, and it's the Transform Cafe, and then it's a Transform Hackathon. They're always on, and they can just log in or log out. So that's always, we could always say we meet there because maybe they are not busy at all. And so we have
they
can talk to each other.
Do they allow breakout channels by default, or?
I think so. Like,
yeah, that would be.
I would think so.
It would be good.
It would be chaotic otherwise. 100 people talking.
But can general participants make breakout rooms, or is that something that only the person running the or hosting the call can do?
Like now, could you make one? I could. Could you make one?
I don't know. I don't see any buttons on the.
But this is the Delft University Zoom. Eh?
Yes, that's not the one we're gonna have. But yeah, I don't know. I also don't know if they're just using the Zoom that comes within the Slack Pro, or if they have a sponsor for this.
That's true. They have a Slack Pro as well.
Yeah, I guess we'll find out tomorrow.
So basically, every channel of Slack, they could be one.
But if not, then it's still a good. You can meet there, and then you can say, yeah, well, let's start another Zoom or Jitsi or Skype or whatever.
Yeah.
There's no lack of possibility, right? So.
I don't know. Let's see. So basically, tomorrow in the morning is going to be Dieter. Alex, are you joining? Or
yeah.
So at least it's the 3 of us. So if nobody else shows up.
Yes. Yeah, but
I'm not. Yeah, sorry.
It still might be worth it. Like, in the evening before we stop, that we tell Dom or Wayne what we've been up to and what we struggled with, so they might find an answer until you start again on Sunday, something like this.
Yeah, I'll wake up early and join. See what's happening.
Cool.
I think if we take that day to just parse out the Forge data sets and figure out which one we want to tackle, that would be optimal for the rest of the week. Because then, when I do the training for GeoSci, I can have something to work with, right?
So do you create some model already, Bain, about that area, even if the data is not optimal, but just to start from something?
Yes. Well, no. No geological modeling. I did some like geostatistics work. Dom actually helped me with doing some inversion of the available gravity data they have for that site. The model did not turn out any but good, so we could revisit that code. But I have done a lot of work to parse a lot of that data into PyVista data structures.
Exactly. So
yeah,
so
the data
is already choosing an area and some data. So if you can just make a folder or somewhere with that, so we can start from there, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I'll get all that data in a Dropbox folder, and then longer timeline, we can move it elsewhere. But I'll get that up and running in the morning tomorrow, as well as aggregating all of the code I have across like 5 different repos for this into one place. And
because you went through this. Sorry, go ahead.
So if could you just put it, even if it's without curating, just put the folder to today so we can start working, because otherwise we have to wait for you until.
Okay, I'll do that
just
tonight.
copy and paste so we can start exploring in the morning and looking a bit.
Give me the data, man! Give me the data!
Otherwise we can do other things, but it's
right, yeah.
Yes,
no,
if you
totally,
have time.
Totally understandable. I'll do that tonight. I gotta work my real job quite a bit this afternoon. But I will make sure that happens tonight. I'll have a beer and do some copy pasting.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, man.
Cool.
Yeah, because there's a lot of stuff in there, but I think there's a lot of reports and whatnot. If you already done all the sifting through, what's important.
Quite a bit, and like there were some data sets I just didn't touch. Like a lot of the well logs I just ignored because I wasn't going to use them, and same with the seismic data because it was in some weird format, and maybe there's other data that's in better format. So
we'll see what you got, and then dig for the rest.
Cool.
Super.
Cool. Well, I guess there's enough stuff we're gonna have to do for the next 2 days.
We'll see you in the morning.
Oh,
well, my morning tomorrow.
Actually, so one final thing. So I remember now. So I actually been in contact with the geophysicist from the Utah Geological Survey who was running the Forge acquisitions. So yeah, if we come up with anything, like we could reach out to him and I don't know, see if we just did a whole bunch of nonsense or
It's possible. The important thing is that the code runs. The geology is secondary.
I think the Utah project has
Code
been
runs
shelved,
and it
though, right?
looks good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if the project's still active, but a ton of research has been published at the site, and so there are sort of models we can treat as truth, or reasonable results, and so we can see if our software can mimic those results,
Cool.
or at least reproduce.
Okay.
Perfect.
Thanks everyone for joining.
All right.
And so see you tomorrow sooner or
Yeah.
later.
Has been
Thanks
great.
for organizing.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Have a nice day.
Yeah, thanks, Dieter. That's super helpful. Thanks so much for organizing.
That's true.
More comes out. Bye bye.
Bye.